We attribute the social and psychological problems of modern society to the fact that society requires people to live under conditions radically different from those under which the human race evolved, and to behave in ways that conflict with the patterns of behavior that the human race developed while living under the earlier conditions. The system does not and cannot exist to satisfy human needs. Instead, it is human behavior that has been modified to fit the needs of the system. Ted Kaczynski, aka the Unabomber, told the Washington Post and the New York Times that he would stop his killings if they published his memoir, Industrial Society and Its Future. It was a controversial choice to publish it, but in the end, they did, providing the masses with one of the most flawed ideologies of any revolutionary. You may be wondering how the Unabomber ties into a video about a TikTok trend, and maybe I'm looking too deeply into it, but Kaczynski's thoughts have weighed heavily on my mind since I read his manifesto a year ago. More importantly, his ideology is eerily linked to the topic of today's video. Kaczynski's ideology was flawed in many ways. You can watch this video of mine if you'd like to hear more about that. But in sum, Kaczynski believed that humans could not be fulfilled with our current technological advancements. He argued that humans must stop engaging in surrogate activities that do not fulfill our basic biological needs. Activities like shopping, media consumption, and working. Everyone has goals, if nothing else, to obtain the physical necessities of life. Food, water, and whatever clothing and shelter are made necessary by the climate. But the leisured aristocrat attains these things without effort, hence his boredom and demoralization. Thus, in order to avoid serious psychological problems, a human being needs goals whose attainment requires effort, and he must have a reasonable rate of success in attaining his goals. In a modernized, wealthy world, the citizens of, say, America, do not need to hunt and gather in order to survive. Instead, they work, get a paycheck, and go to Walmart to buy all their needs and wants, which are right at their fingertips. Many people who pursue surrogate activities will say that they get far more fulfillment from these activities than they do from the mundane business of satisfying their biological needs. But that is because in our society, the effort needed to satisfy the biological needs has been reduced to triviality. Kaczynski didn't just think that some technology was bad, or that technology was bad because of the system it's used in. He believed that there was no hope unless we reverted completely back to a time where modern transport didn't exist, where modern medicine didn't exist, when modern anything didn't exist. I'd love to see how he would have felt about TikTok. Kaczynski was on the right track, at one point making the correct assessment that if human needs were put before technological necessity, there would be economic problems, unemployment, shortages, or worse. Unfortunately, his mostly unreasonable hatred of leftist ideology meant that he didn't critique capitalism, imperialism, or the many isms that exist largely because of these systems, such as classism, sexism, and racism. It also meant that he didn't believe in collectivism, or anything socialist, communist, anarchist, or any left-aligned ideology. Instead of recognizing that technology can be good when not exploited for profit and other evil intentions, Kaczynski blamed the technology itself for all of humanity's problems, and he wasn't entirely wrong in that assessment. Hannah Arendt believed in the power of technology to create a world that would outlive the individual, and in advanced devices through which we build better living conditions for future generations. Although she did not consider technology inherently bad, as early as the mid-20th century when she wrote The Human Condition, she understood that the greatest danger of technology lies in its ability to distance us from the real world, from community, conversation, encounters, and ultimately responsibility. In short, from everything that makes us rational human beings. For the past few months, more people online have come to the realization that our current system is not fulfilling us. In fact, most of us are barely even fulfilling the luxurious surrogate needs that were promised to us. In a response to the modern tech push of the past 2 decades, people online are reverting back to a time before social media and phones, before computers and YouTube, before streaming services and excess consumption, believing that this will be the trend that finally fixes their lives. But there's a few important things missing from their rhetoric. Is modern technology harming us? And is the analog trend really the solution to all of our problems? A little bit yes, and obviously, no. From the early 2000s to now, the masses from rich countries have been craving a high-tech revolution. It was promised to bring high-tech cars, incredible virtual worlds, and improve work for us humans. In the past 20+ years, we've seen momentous technological advancements. The first iPhone, the first social media platforms like Friendster and MySpace, the creation of YouTube, the domination of streaming platforms, and the now ever-present artificial intelligence of all kinds. Many of these have been incredibly beneficial to the world. Smartphones allow us easy contact to our loved ones, a camera and recorder, and so much more. Social media gives people access to communities that they never would have found before, and answers to any question that they've ever had. But with every positive of these advancements comes a big negative. Your phone lets you contact your friend as often as possible, but now your friend is pressured to constantly be on their phone. You can find more like-minded people on social media, but now you're getting more information, positive and negative, flooding into your mind than you were ever built to process. Now being anti-tech is the counterculture of today's world. People have experienced the way technology has been exploited against us, and they're trying to get away from it. They want a slower life filled with creative hobbies, time spent outside and away from screens, and a more traditional way of living. yet they want it without any of the systemic changes that would make it possible. The analog trend as it exists now is just another capitalistic consumer trend. The trend offers dozens of swaps for modern technology: dumb phones instead of smartphones, magazines instead of scrolling, records and CDs instead of music streaming, creative hobbies instead of watching TV and playing video games. Overall, the goal is to spend less time online and on your phone, which is not a bad thing in essence, but in practice, the trend is absolutist and hypocritical in nature. One of the things that has come out of this trend is the analog bag. TikTok creator CC Campbell is the originator of the bag, first coining the term in 2025. The point of the bag, she says, is to always have easy access to alternative activities you can do when you want to mindlessly pick up your phone. Instead of, for example, scrolling, you'd pick something else from the bag to do, maybe a crossword puzzle or some crocheting. Tons of people have recreated her idea, sharing their own analog bags on social media. The bags can be filled with anything, as long as the activity is not tech-centered. Obviously, it's funny and ironic that people are talking about getting off their phones and social media on social media. But I think that this is kind of a moot point. To point out the obvious, you can absolutely share things online while still being mostly offline. I try to post on Instagram often, but my time spent on the app rarely exceeds 15 minutes daily of personal scrolling. Yes, it's obvious that most of the people posting about this trend are not truly interested in a world where slower living and creative hobbies are prioritized. Partly because if they were, they probably would choose not to be on social media at all. At the same time though, choosing to not be on social media or the internet at all is an extreme that most people don't want to engage with. Because despite the negatives of this kind of tech, there are still positives that people don't want to give up. Connections to other people, access to every kind of information, and the ability to spread our beliefs through our own post. At the core of this trend is an idea that's not actually being celebrated. Because in order for us to truly live with the tenets of being analog, slow, mindful, and present, we can't live in a capitalist society. Take the creator of the bag, for example. Maybe she actually wants to get off her phone and live a slower life, but she doesn't want to get rid of the system that uses our phones to exploit us for profit. How do I know this? Well, every month CC posts about a new analog bag filled with different items she's been using to live out her true analog lifestyle. Anything she can sell from the bag, she does. An Amazon storefront filled with pretty much every product she's ever talked about on her page, as well as a shop my list with dozens upon dozens of items. In just 3 months, she introduced 3 different kinds of cameras you could use instead of your phone, all of them available for purchase through her affiliate links. At the end of the day, CC is still an influencer, and living slow doesn't sell. Using the same products and items day in and day out doesn't give your audience new things to buy from you. Truly living offline and in the moment doesn't give you content to post online to continue growing your brand. CC cannot exist without making money from her audience. The lifestyle she's purported to live is completely antithetical to the fact that she's a social media influencer. CC also has an affiliate link with the brand Brick, which is a physical block you can buy for $60. It creates a physical barrier between you and certain apps on your phone since you need to scan the brick in order to open up these apps. The fear of phone addiction couldn't be more profitable. Fortune estimates that the global social media blocker app market is projected to grow from $1.47 billion in 2025 to $5 billion in 2035. The analog trend fails with what it's proposing on multiple levels. Now, the reasons behind the trend, while somewhat flawed, make a lot of sense. For a while, I have been craving a world vastly different from ours. As I've grown up and struggled with work and money throughout my entire life, I know it would make me happy, and it's not capitalism. Maybe most people wouldn't agree with what I want as a solution, but I truly believe that everyone deep down knows that we cannot keep existing as we are now. Under capitalism, the only way that we're allowed to enjoy ourselves is through consumption. Because the world has advanced to a point where we can get food, shelter, and water delivered to us without doing any of the labor to meet those needs directly, we instead need to work in order to get those needs met. Other people, land, and animals, who in which are being exploited, do the work for us so that we can get paid at our office job and then go to Walmart to buy our food. We're promised an idea that by working, we will get all those needs met. And then we can even consume in other ways. We can watch a TV show, play a video game, listen to all the music we desire on Spotify, buy any of the junk we want at TJ Maxx, and we're satisfied. In reality, half of Americans struggle to meet their basic needs. Only a few amount of people are allowed to achieve the capitalist dream of buying anything, going anywhere, and using their money for any desire that may make them feel fulfilled. The rest of us are working for a life that was never real in the first place. We don't have time to build community or anywhere to do it. We don't have time to create or to feel the world around us. Our last luxury, if we're lucky to have any left, is spending money, whether that's on streaming platforms or shopping in a store. Humans were not meant to live like this, but the technology itself is not the problem exactly, unless we follow the same path as the Unabomber himself. I'd prefer a life where I lived in a real community, where the people were in charge, where there was a common exchange of goods, where technology was not absent, but not as prominently used as it is now. More importantly, I want a world where I can be a human, not a body working every day until I'm worn out while all the capitalists steal my labor for themselves. Within the analog trend, smartphones are the biggest enemy. For years, people in the media have been pushing the narrative that we're addicted to our phones. A strong word for what's more of a dependency based on circumstances rather than a true addiction. I mean, it's obvious that we can't live without phones in this current age. Of course, we have a dependency on it in some way. Now, I think that people should be able to opt out of it if they want to and not be punished for being unavailable in that way. But having a phone isn't really the issue. It's the content on the phone. No one is addicted to using their camera or calculator app. They're addicted to social apps that show them everything, from their friends' and enemies' lives to everything going on around the world all at once. People hate how having a phone makes them feel rather than the phone itself. In reality, phones are extremely useful tools, but it's how we're made to use them in a system that makes us hate them. Tech companies don't care if the way their platforms or products are designed harm people. They just want to make money. If we weren't being used for profit, like being fed inflammatory content online to keep us angry and constantly engaged, then I think most people would have a positive relationship with their phone. I'd bet most of us are not genuinely addicted to using our phones. Rather, we're performing compulsions based on our circumstances, like wanting to see whether or not anyone texted us, or if there's any news on an event you're following. These behaviors in essence are not good or bad, but when it's near constant checking or usage, then that's problematic. But problematic phone usage is complex and layered. Yes, it's an individual problem, but it's also the way the world has been designed around phones. It's made us dependent on them, and not in a good way. Even then, I'd say most people do not meet the actual criteria for addiction. Most of the statistics we see on phone addiction are self-reports, rather than actual analysis of people's phone and social media usage. A recent meta-analysis of phone addiction found that 27% of the global population was addicted to their smartphones, and that 17% had a social media addiction. It's definitely a high number, but not as high as some self-reports would have you believe. Look at how much time you really spend on your phone. Is it actually a cause for concern? What apps do you use the most? Do you use your phone as a distraction? How often do you pick up your phone and what for? Does using your phone interfere with your life in a negative way? Does using your phone make you feel good or bad? Is it certain apps and the content on them? Or is it the phone itself? I'm not going to sit here and say that rotting away watching TikTok for 5 hours straight is a good thing. But what exactly is the problem with spending 30 minutes a day on social media? Or spending time texting your friends? Hell, what the fuck's even the problem with pulling out your phone to take a picture of something going on? I understand that the main reason people want to be on their phone less is because they want to live in the moment, in real life. But wanting to be less centered around your phone does not mean that phones are evil in essence. Personally, I do have a problem with compulsively picking up my phone when I'm not doing a different engaging activity. I do think that picking up your phone every 10 minutes is problematic. But is that an actual addiction, or is it just a bad habit? I agree. The relationships we have to our screens and the content we're engaging with on them is something that needs to be examined. But the problem with the addiction narrative is that it leads us down a slippery slope where governments have the power to control the content we're seeing and how we're seeing it. In March, a California jury found Meta and Google liable for a teen's supposed addiction to the platforms, forcing both companies to pay $6 million in damages, Meta 70% and Google 30%. Mere pennies for Google and Meta, yet this ruling will cost all of us a lot more. The plaintiff accused Meta and Google of knowingly designing their platforms, Instagram and YouTube respectively, to be addictive, leading to the young girl's addiction and subsequent depression and anxiety. The most important part of this case is how Section 230 is used in the argument. The prosecutors argued that the claim has nothing to do with the content that the woman saw when she was a child. Rather, they claim that the problem is with the way the platforms are designed. That the design itself is what caused the plaintiff's mental health problems, not the content she was looking at. The court, in their decision, sided with the prosecution's argument, arguing that the decision would not hinder the protections that Section 230 provides for internet users, since the case is about design, not content. But this couldn't be further from the truth. All four defendants argued that Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and the First Amendment barred liability. Judge Kuhl rejected these arguments across the board, holding that the plaintiff had presented evidence that design features such as infinite scroll, autoplay, and notification systems harmed her independently of any third-party content. The court held that features of Instagram that draw the user into compulsive viewing of content were a substantial factor in causing her harm. On the First Amendment, the court found that the allegedly addictive features of defendants' platforms, such as endless scroll, cannot be analogized to how a publisher chooses to make a compilation of information, but rather are based on harm allegedly caused by design features that affect how plaintiffs interact with the platforms regardless of the nature of the third-party content viewed. Yet these algorithms do not exist in a vacuum online. If the only thing you could watch on TikTok was videos of an empty room on repeat, then people probably wouldn't be saying they're addicted to it. The content is a key factor in cases against these giant platforms, hence why ridiculous age verification laws have begun to take hold across platforms and governments. It's not because social media and internet algorithms or our phones are inherently dangerous. It's because the content children are being exposed to is dangerous. You may think that these giant and terrible corporations deserve to get persecuted for the harm they've contributed to the world. Privacy scandals, horrible content moderation. But as with age verification, Meta and Google are not the only websites that will be punished. Challenging Section 230 will make the entire internet uninhabitable. If every editorial decision on how to present third-party content is now a design choice, subject to product liability, Section 230 protects effectively nothing. Every website makes decisions about how to display user content. Every search engine ranks results. Every email provider filters spam. Every forum has a sorting algorithm, even if it's just newest first. All of these are design choices that could, theoretically, be blamed for some downstream harm. Every plaintiff's attorney in America now has a proven template for suing any social media platform. The bellwether structure means more trials are already scheduled. The next California state court one is in July, with a similar federal case starting in June. The litigation flood has started, and 230's procedural protection, the ability to get these cases dismissed before they become multi-million-dollar ordeals, has already been neutralized. You may think that getting rid of Section 230 will protect internet users more, but instead it will do the exact opposite. It will curtail our free speech on the internet as a whole. Websites will begin to moderate in extremes, like disallowing controversial subjects on their platforms for fear of getting sued over whatever Jane Doe from Iowa posted. There are already exceptions to Section 230, such as criminal activity. It's not like Section 230 creates a free-for-all online. Targeting and eventually repealing Section 230 would put more power in government and big tech hands, not the other way around. In a similar vein to the addiction claims are the claims that social media is severely harming people, specifically children's mental health. Of course, there are factors that can lead to people's mental health worsening because of social media. Constant exposure to negative and violent content, feeds that are designed to keep users engaged for as long as possible, and 24/7 access to every kind of information possible. These are all factors for why I prefer to spend significantly less time on social media. I do believe that the way they're designed and the content boosted on them is often dangerous, but the solution isn't to severely restrict it or ban it. It's for people to hold companies accountable for their exploitation of us, and to put the power in our hands, not theirs. Social media platforms still provide benefits to those who use them. In fact, multiple studies have shown the benefits as well as the harms of these platforms. Again, the problem isn't the tech itself, it's how it's functioning in a broader society that is profoundly sick. While some of it is grounded in real fears and problems, the panic around phones, the internet, and social media is just another repeat of past panics. In 1984, as Wired reported, Frederick Wertheim writes, "I have found that children from 3 to 4 have learned from television that killing, especially shooting, is one of the established procedures for coping with the problem." In 1977, following the release of a video game called Death Race, Gerald Dreyeson, a behavioral scientist, describes gaming consoles as definitively negative. The person no longer is just a spectator, but now an actor in the process of creating violence. I mean, did we really forget about the great video game panic? That never really ended, might I add. Violent video games like GTA and Call of Duty were said to cause their players to act violently in real life, despite the fact that evidence proved otherwise. Some people even tried to link the Columbine shooters' use of video games to the shooting. In 2018, the World Health Organization decided to include gaming disorder in its updated international classification of diseases. The symptoms include impaired control over gaming, frequency, intensity, duration, increased priority given to gaming, and continuation or escalation of gaming despite negative consequences. No doubt, there are people who are genuinely addicted to playing video games, but medically classifying a gaming disorder leads to people who are not addicted being pathologized in their hobby. I mean, I'm a big gamer. I used to play a lot more than I did now, close to 35 hours a week. If someone wanted to fearmonger about video games, they'd point to me and try to make it seem like I was addicted to gaming, which, of course, I'm not, and I was not. I believe this exact thing is happening with phones. The same can go for the fear-mongering about content we're being exposed to on the internet. Yes, can be bad. Really fucking bad sometimes, as with video games. But the difference is, we're not largely controlling what we're seeing. Whereas with video games, we're choosing to play something violent. The solution isn't to ban people from social media or to get rid of user protections. It's to put the power in the user's hands. In a study published to the journal Computers and Human Behavior, a team recruited people from a video game convention. Engadget reported, these groups were asked to define what they felt constituted symptoms of a gaming addiction, then discuss and rank their criteria in order of importance. A team then compared the ranked list against the proposed DSM-5 criteria for IGD. The study found that the strongest agreement between participants' rankings and IGD characterizations were functional impairment, continued use despite problems, unsuccessful attempts to stop, and the loss of interest in other hobbies. The other 5 DSM-5 criteria did not overlap as strongly. People are quick to attribute casual influences. Antonius J. Baruch, another author of the paper, writes, "These games aren't necessarily causing the problems. It might just as well be the other way around. People are not functioning. They suffer from social anxiety. They're lonely. And they flee into the games because it's an excellent coping mechanism. Even further proof that these self-reports the media relies on are more often than not inaccurate. If we're being fed the idea that merely existing online or on our phone to any degree is an addiction, then of course people are going to assume checking Instagram 3 times a day makes them an addict. As with smartphones and social media and screens in general, gaming is not inherently bad. Mariana Olaizola Rosenblatt wrote for NYU. The issue is that certain popular video games and the communities surrounding them have helped to normalize racist, misogynist, and other hate-based ideologies among gamers. Participation in such toxic online environments, when combined with pre-existing vulnerabilities and access to firearms, can lead to offline violence. It's not a simple causal story, but one that deserves careful examination and nuanced reporting. I've been gaming since I was 3. No, my mind is not dumbed down, as some of you would like to believe, and no, I'm not some violent psychopath. Some of you would also like to believe. Gaming has played a pivotal role in my life, and as has my cell phone. Without the internet or my phone, I wouldn't have had access to knowledge about subjects that were not discussed in my real life. I wouldn't have had access to support groups or communities relative to my life. And I wouldn't have been able to discover half of the things that I'm interested in now. We can sit here all day and point out every bad part of the internet, because I know it can be bad. But I can't sit here and act like I wouldn't have been an entirely different person without it. Possibly a worse version of myself. It can exacerbate my current struggles, like my OCD symptoms. But it also gives me access to people and topics I would have never learned of without it. It looks like from the data that some people probably overdo gaming like they overdo a lot of other things, like food or exercise or work or religion. There are even papers on dance addiction, of all things. But that seems to be more of a symptom of other underlying mental illness rather than a mental illness by itself. In an op-ed from The Body Coach, the author writes about his phone addiction. The first thing he says is, "I am addicted to distraction." He continues, "It's not just Instagram, social media, and work. It's WhatsApp, news apps, sports results, mindless scrolling, reels, and Twitter timelines. It's relentless. I get sucked in this infinite loop where I'm constantly picking up my phone and refreshing the news feeds on all my channels without thinking. I spend hours every day doing this, and I find it so difficult to snap out of. My brain is constantly seeking some other form of distraction and stimulation, and 100% of the time, it's coming from me picking up my phone. I am addicted to it. Not only is my phone the source of distraction for my brain, it's also the source of almost every negative emotion I feel in a day, from anger, frustration, and impatience around the kids, to intolerance, stress, insecurities, and anxiety. They usually all stem from looking at my phone." Okay, so because the phone perfectly feeds into the issues that you have, that means what? Everyone is addicted to distraction like you are? What about the people who have healthy relationships with their phones and social media? Should they be pathologized and punished for normal behavior? I don't want to treat this like a totally individual problem, because like I said, it is true that the way we're required to function on our phones and social media is extremely unhealthy. But that is a systemic problem. A problem with the people controlling and designing this tech, not with the concept of the tech itself. Going back to Kaczynski, scrolling and excessively consuming on screens is a surrogate activity. We don't feel fulfilled doing it because it exists along with and within an inhumane system. Lots of people, including related to both these cases, keep comparing social media to things like cigarettes or lead paint. But as we discussed, that's a horrible comparison. Cigarettes cause cancer regardless of what else is happening in a smoker's life. Lead paint causes neurological damage regardless of a child's home environment. Social media is not like that. The relationship between social media and mental health outcomes is complex, highly individual, and mediated by dozens of other confounding factors that researchers are still trying to untangle. Another person told reporter Laura Schneckman for Reader's Digest about his phone addiction. "My phone addiction started before I got a phone. From a really young age, screens called to me. I'd always get excited to go to a friend's house where there were video games to play and televisions to watch. Long before I got a cell phone, I got a Game Boy. This is my first handheld device. My mom didn't allow us to have video games, and we didn't have a television, but she compromised with the Game Boy. I would stay up late or hide in the bathroom just to keep playing it. As I grew older, my attachment to screens and the rewards they gave me, a sense of wonder, fantasy, adventure, connection, and creativity, grew stronger. By the time I turned 11 or 12, I started to feel more disconnected from my peers. That, combined with some traumatic experience as a child, some abuse, led me to turn more and more to screens as a coping mechanism." The media reporting on yet another self-report of phone addiction isn't going to listen to the nuances presented within this person's story. The fact that his mom didn't promote a balanced consumption of gaming. The fact that he used these convenient escapes as coping mechanisms. They're just going to say, "Look, another reason why we need to get rid of smartphones." Yes, all of this is linked to the analog trend, because the analog trend, while being completely antithetical to the beliefs of the movement, also inadvertently contributes to the widespread fear around smartphones, social media, and technology as a whole. We have a right to fear technology, to believe that it is not serving us, both of which are fears grounded in truth. But fear-mongering about technology will only serve those who were already in servitude to. Consuming TikTok or Reels or YouTube or TV shows or video games day in and day out feels empty because it can be. When it's the only way we're able to disconnect and decompress, by turning off our mind completely, that is a sign that we as a society are completely sick. Instead of creating something, being physically active, spending time with others, we instead turn to consumption because it's the last surrogate activity we're able to do. I personally like being online less. I value doing things that make me feel like a human being. Gardening, hunting, going outside, creating, building, intellectualizing, which is exactly what I did this entire video. I don't want to live in a capitalist world anymore. And deep down, I think most people agree, even if they're too moronic to realize that communism isn't actually bad. I'm not gonna sit here though and act like I think going completely off-grid would be beneficial for society. At that point, I might as well get some bombs together too. I love having access to streaming. I hate how these services have ruined cinema and TV and taken advantage of their customers. I love being able to text my friends. I hate how I react to getting a notification on my phone. I love having access to communities online. I hate how often they can be toxic. I love video games. I actually can't say a single bad thing about them, maybe except for the fact that I'd love to have more mental energy to do something else at the end of the day. When we feel like there is no hope or other solution, we choose the most extreme option. Get rid of the tech completely and switch to everything analog and physical. Technology can be extremely harmful. Look at the origin history of the Luddites. But the catch is that the Luddites weren't crazy idiots against technological progress. They were workers fighting against how the tech would be used. The problem is how the tech is utilized, not with the tech itself. In our current world, we may feel like there's no way to exist alongside technology without it harming us. But there is a way, and unlike what Kaczynski thought, it's not being anti-leftist. The analog trend is simply putting a band-aid over a limb that needs to be amputated. Rejecting modernity completely is a dangerous route to go down, where only the most privileged of us will be able to truly engage with a slow-living, disconnected life. Because as long as we're expected to live as capitalist slaves, we will never be able to live in a world the creators of this trend are promising. Well, that's it for me, and that's it for this video. Let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know what you think about the analog trend. Hell, comment down below anything you want to comment down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like me, you can subscribe. I post videos about whatever I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like your thing, make sure to subscribe and turn the notification bell so you know when I post a video. I'd like to give a shout out to my Patreon members on my Alpha and Delta tiers. Thank you so much to Manny Spacer and Lisbeth Ruiz. I truly appreciate your continued support. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members. If you want to become a member, as always, the link will be down below. Anyway, I really hope you all enjoyed this video, and I really need to get out of this room because I'm suffocating in here. It's so hot in here. Like I said, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next video. You better be there watching it. That's pretty much it. I wanna taste the pain. I think I'm seeing